Ever wonder which casual dining chains to avoid at all costs and which two are actually worth it? Picture walking into a booth under dim lights, ordering a once famous dish and realizing it tastes like reheated leftovers from yesterday. But a couple of chains still serve up real comfort. Curious which ones will surprise you. Let's kick things off with the chain that promises neighborhood charm, but too often serves up microwaved mediocrity. Applebee's. You walk in and the decor screams comfort food with colorful menus and pictures of sizzling skillets. The problem is, half of what arrives at your table tastes like it just came out of a freezer box. Steaks that are tough, pastas that are drowning in sauce, and appetizers that feel like they came straight off a truck. Applebee's tries to be a little of everything: burgers, pasta, steaks, salads, and those infamous half-price appetizers after 9 o'clock. But in trying to please everyone, it ends up satisfying almost no one. The riblets, once their claim to fame, now taste like sweet, sticky disappointment more than real barbecue. Price-wise, you can fill up here without breaking the bank, which is why families keep coming back. But the value feels empty when you realize you could have grilled a better steak at home or picked up fresher pasta from the grocery store for the same price. Service can be hit or miss too, depending on whether you get the enthusiastic server or the one who clearly wishes they were anywhere else. Applebee's has become less about the food and more about being a convenient, middle-of-the-road stop. Now, that does not mean you cannot find a guilty pleasure moment. Maybe it is the boneless wings during happy hour or one too many dollar cocktails during a late night. But as a full meal, it leaves you wondering why you did not just cook at home. Applebee's survives on nostalgia and cheap drinks, not because it is a dining experience people rave about. So here is the question. What is the one Applebee's dish you secretly do not mind, even if you know it is not great? Next up is the chain that lures you in with sizzling fajitas, but usually leaves you with regret: Chili's. The menu promises bold flavors, Tex-Mex excitement, and burgers stacked to the sky. But what often lands on the table is lukewarm fajitas that stopped sizzling 3 minutes before they reached you. The burgers, while photogenic, lean heavily on sauces and toppings to mask dry patties. And their famous baby back ribs? More like overly sauced meat sliding off the bone with no smoke or depth of flavor. Chili's is the kind of place where the first bite tricks you into thinking it is not bad, maybe even tasty. But halfway through, you realize everything is way too salty, greasy, or just plain heavy. It is a lot of flair and not much heart. Families keep coming back because it feels fun, loud, and kid-friendly. But if you strip away the excitement of sizzling skillets and margaritas the size of your head, you are left with food that does not really stand out. Pricing is slightly higher than Applebee's, especially with appetizers and drinks, so you end up paying a bit more for the atmosphere, rather than for quality. Service varies, but the chain's reputation has leaned toward gimmicks and endless deals rather than solid cooking. It is comfort food disguised as fiesta food, and once the cheese cools and the sauce congeals, the party is over. The one bright spot is that you can usually count on Chili's for a drink-heavy night with friends, even if the food becomes more of an afterthought. The margaritas deliver more satisfaction than most entrees on the menu. So tell me, are you in it for the fajitas, the ribs, or is it really just the margaritas keeping Chili's alive for you? Sliding into the list is the once iconic chain that turned casual dining into a gimmick fest, TGI Fridays. Once upon a time, it was the cool place to go. The music, the energy, the endless appetizers, it all felt like an event. But today, the food tells a different story. Jack Daniel's sauce used to be a signature favorite, but now it feels like sticky sugar covering up bland meats. The mozzarella sticks are fine, but only if you catch them hot and fresh. Burgers arrive looking promising, but taste closer to frozen patties with a mountain of toppings to distract you. The biggest problem with TGI Fridays is that it leans so hard on branding and nostalgia, but the food has not kept up. Their endless appetizer deal may sound like a dream, but after the second plate, you realize you are eating the same frozen bites reheated over and over again. Service can be slow, and prices are not as friendly as they once were. You end up paying for the memory of what TGI Fridays used to be, rather than what it is today. That does not mean you cannot find a decent cocktail or a fun night out, especially if you are going in for the atmosphere rather than the food. But as a chain built on energy and flavor, it now feels tired, leaning too much on frozen shortcuts. The Friday feeling they advertise does not really carry through past the first appetizer platter. Here's a fun one. Do you remember when TGI Fridays felt exciting? Or has it always just been frozen food in disguise for you? Coming in next is the chain that promises Italian warmth, but usually delivers carbs and regret. Olive Garden. The commercials make it look like a Tuscan getaway. Families laughing, breadsticks flowing, endless pasta bowls that seem like a dream. But step inside and what you really get is pasta drowning in Alfredo sauce, thick enough to spackle a wall. The breadsticks are addictive at first bite, but once you realize they are mostly butter and salt, the charm fades. And the salad? More like a pile of iceberg lettuce dressed in wishful thinking. Olive Garden has built its entire empire on the illusion of generosity. Endless this, endless that. But endless mediocrity is still mediocrity. The pasta lacks any real freshness. The sauces taste like they were poured from a jar, and the Italian classics lean closer to Midwestern potluck food than anything you would find in Rome. Prices can trick you too. That endless pasta bowl might look like a deal, but the quality makes it feel like a waste by the time you are halfway through. Families love it because it feels safe, predictable, and you never leave hungry. But never leaving hungry is not the same as leaving satisfied. The chain runs on nostalgia and the promise of a fancy night out that is really more of a salt-heavy carb overload. The best part of Olive Garden is often the breadsticks and the company you keep, not the meals themselves. So tell me, when was the last time Olive Garden truly impressed you, or do you just keep going back for the breadsticks? Rolling In is the chain that built its name on a salad bar only to let it wilt into disappointment. Ruby Tuesday. Back in the day, the draw of Ruby Tuesday was that endless, colorful salad bar. Piles of fresh toppings, endless dressings, and the kind of variety that made it feel like you were treating yourself while still being healthy. But those days are gone. Walk into one today and the salad bar feels sad and lifeless, with limp lettuce, shredded carrots that taste like nothing, and cottage cheese that looks more like wallpaper paste. And that is before you even get to the entrees. Ruby Tuesday's menu tries to hit all the usual marks: burgers, pasta, chicken dishes, and ribs, but it rarely lands. Burgers arrive overcooked, pastas lack any personality, and ribs are coated in sauce so sweet it feels like candy. Even their famous cheddar biscuits, which once gave them some charm, now taste more like salty hockey pucks. The vibe has shifted too. Once a lively chain that felt like a family outing, now it feels tired and dated, with decor that has not been updated since the early 2000s. The problem is not just the food, it is the identity. Ruby Tuesday cannot decide if it is casual dining or fast dining. Prices are not cheap enough to forgive the quality, but not high enough to count as special either. You walk out feeling like you wasted money, not like you had a meal worth remembering. That said, nostalgia can keep people coming back. For many, Ruby Tuesday was the spot where they had family dinners, school banquets, or first dates. And maybe, just maybe, that memory is stronger than the food itself. But for today's diners, the experience feels flat, stuck in a time warp, and unable to compete with fresher, more exciting chains. So here's a question. When was the last time you actually saw Ruby Tuesday packed with people? Or does it always feel half empty to you now? Here's the seafood spot that once felt like a splurge, but now too often leaves you with regret. Red Lobster. If you grew up in America, there was a time when Red Lobster felt like a big deal. Birthdays, graduations, or payday celebrations often meant gathering around a table filled with crab legs and shrimp platters. But over the years, the shine has worn off. Today, the lobster tails are tiny, the shrimp is rubbery, and the platters feel more like reheated freezer bags than fresh catches from the sea. Of course, the one saving grace has always been the Cheddar Bay biscuits. People go wild for those little golden rounds of salty, cheesy bread. But biscuits alone cannot carry a restaurant. When your star attraction is a free basket of bread, that is not a good sign for the entrees. Red Lobster's seafood often arrives overcooked, drowned in butter or sauce, and lacking the freshness you would expect from a place with lobster in its name. Pricing makes it worse. You can easily spend $50 for two people, and yet the quality does not justify the cost. What should feel like a seafood feast feels more like a grocery store shortcut, dressed up on a platter. And that is before you consider how the atmosphere has dulled. Once a lively spot with aquariums and a sense of occasion, now many Red Lobster locations feel dim, outdated, and a little bit sad. Still, for many, nostalgia keeps it alive. Maybe you have fond memories of dipping shrimp into cocktail sauce or cracking crab legs with family. But those memories are harder to find in today's Red Lobster experience. The soul of the place has been lost to cost-cutting and mediocrity. So tell me, do you still go to Red Lobster for the seafood? Or is it really just the Cheddar Bay biscuits keeping you hooked? Next up is the Australian steakhouse that wowed us with bloomin' onions, but now serves steaks that taste more chain than choice. Outback Steakhouse. When Outback first arrived, it felt new, fun, and different. An Australian theme, oversized appetizers and steaks cooked over open flame gave it a bold identity. The bloomin' onion was a star in its own right. A crispy, golden, deep-fried tower of onion petals that made people feel like they were indulging in something special. But once you move past the appetizers, things get shaky. Steaks at Outback often arrive unevenly cooked, sometimes overdone, sometimes cold in the middle. For a place that calls itself a steakhouse, that is not a good sign. The seasoning tends to be heavy-handed, relying on salt and spice mixes instead of letting the meat speak for itself. Even side dishes like mashed potatoes or vegetables feel like afterthoughts pulled from a box, rather than freshly prepared. The atmosphere, once buzzing and fun, now feels more generic. It is loud, yes, but not in the way that feels exciting. More like chaos, with kids running around and servers stretched too thin. And while prices are not as high as some upscale steak places, they are high enough that you expect better quality. Spending $30 on a steak that tastes no better than what you could grill at home makes people feel cheated. Of course, some diners still love Outback, especially for nostalgia or the comfort of knowing exactly what you are going to get. But that predictability comes at a cost. Bland food that is stuck in the past, pretending to be adventurous. So here's my question. Do you go to Outback for the steaks, or is the bloomin' onion still the real star of the show? Coming down the list is the gimmick-heavy chain, where the wings are more forgettable than the decor, Hooters. Everyone knows the gimmick here, and it is not the food. When Hooters first opened, it drew crowds because it felt like something different, even edgy. The promise of cold beer, sports on television, and world-famous wings created a certain atmosphere. But here is the truth. The wings are average at best, and the rest of the menu barely registers. Wings often arrive overcooked, drowning in sauce that ranges from too mild to painfully hot with no balance of flavor. Burgers and sandwiches are no better, tasting like they came straight from a frozen box. Fries are limp and salads feel like an afterthought. When the strongest compliment you can give a restaurant is "the beer was cold," that tells you everything you need to know. The experience is built on the atmosphere, not the food. Servers are friendly, sure, but the entire concept leans on a gimmick rather than culinary value. Over time, the novelty wears off, and what is left is food that does not stand up on its own. Prices do not help either. You can spend $30 or $40 for a basic meal and still leave feeling like you wasted your money. That said, nostalgia and sports fans keep Hooters alive. It is the kind of place you might stop in for a game and a drink, not because you actually crave the food. And maybe that is the biggest problem. When wings are supposed to be your specialty, they should not be the weakest part of the experience. So tell me, have you ever gone to Hooters mainly for the wings, or was it always really about the gimmick? Here's the spot with a menu longer than a novel, but where too many dishes taste like rough drafts. The Cheesecake Factory. Walking into a cheesecake factory is like stepping into a grand illusion. Marble columns, soft lighting, and booths that make you feel like you are about to dine in style. Then comes the menu, a book so thick it could double as a doorstop. Pastas, pizzas, tacos, burgers, steaks, sandwiches, and of course, cheesecake. The problem is, when you try to cook absolutely everything, you end up mastering almost nothing. Take their pastas, for example. On the menu, they sound amazing. 4-cheese pasta, Cajun jambalaya pasta, fettuccine alfredo with chicken. In reality, they often arrive lukewarm, drowning in sauce, with noodles cooked past the point of no return. Burgers feel the same way. A thick bun, average toppings, and patties that taste like they were cooked in bulk and left sitting. Even dishes that should be simple, like their tacos, somehow end up bland and unmemorable. What the Cheesecake Factory does well, ironically, is cheesecake. Their dessert case is a carnival of flavors: strawberry, Oreo, key lime, white chocolate raspberry. And yes, the cheesecake is usually worth the hype. But here is the catch. By the time you actually get to dessert, you are already so stuffed from oversized entrees that the cheesecake feels more like an obligation than a treat. Then there is the price. You can easily spend $70 or $80 for 2 people, and while the portions are huge, the quality does not match the cost. The atmosphere tries to make it feel upscale, but the food undercuts it at every turn. You walk out not thinking, wow, that was incredible, but more like, I cannot believe I ate that much and barely enjoyed it. Still, nostalgia and curiosity keep people coming back. For many, the Cheesecake Factory is the place where you celebrated your first date, graduation dinner, or family outing. It still feels special to walk in, but the food rarely holds up. It is the classic case of overpromising and under-delivering. So here's my question. Do you go to the Cheesecake Factory for the entrees, or is it really just about the cheesecake in the end? And before we head to the bright side, let's talk about the family diner that promises comfort but usually plates up rubbery pancakes, Perkins. Perkins is the kind of place that has been around forever, tucked along highways and in small towns, calling itself a family-friendly diner. The draw has always been its 24-hour breakfast, fresh pies, and bottomless coffee. But here is the problem. What Perkins promises and what it delivers are two different things. The pancakes, for example, are their crown jewel. Big, fluffy, and served with butter and syrup, they should be irresistible. Instead, they too often come out rubbery, with the texture of a kitchen sponge. Waffles are no better, lacking crispness, and eggs are either undercooked or dry. Even bacon, which should be an easy win, frequently arrives limp and greasy. Their entrees are hit or miss as well. Chicken strips taste frozen, burgers are under-seasoned, and soups feel watered down. Perkins wants to be both a bakery and a diner, but that split personality means neither side is truly great. You can order a slice of pie and sometimes it hits the spot, but too often it tastes like it has been sitting in the case all day. The atmosphere adds to the disappointment. Perkins should feel cozy, warm, and inviting, but instead many locations feel stuck in the 1990s, with worn booths, sticky menus, and tired decor. Servers do their best, but it is clear that corners are being cut in the kitchen. The prices may be lower than upscale chains, but they still are not low enough to excuse the quality. Spending $30 or $40 for 2 people should leave you feeling satisfied, not regretting that you could have made a better breakfast at home. Perkins is a reminder that just because something has been around forever does not mean it has aged well. So tell me, do you stop at Perkins out of genuine craving, or just because it is the only thing open when you are driving late at night? On the brighter side, here's the rowdy, welcoming steakhouse that still knows how to keep rolls warm, butter sweet, and steaks juicy, Texas Roadhouse. From the moment you walk in, the energy is different. The music is loud, the peanuts are on the floor, and the servers are buzzing with life. It feels like a party, even on a Tuesday night. But the real star is the food, and that starts with the bread. Those warm rolls slathered with cinnamon butter are so addictive they could be a meal on their own. When it comes to steaks, Texas Roadhouse delivers where many others fail. Cuts are seasoned simply but cooked with attention, giving you juicy, flavorful bites every time. The ribeye is a fan favorite, with marbling that melts in your mouth. Even sides like baked potatoes and fresh salads are done with care, not just tossed on the plate. What really sets Texas Roadhouse apart is consistency. You know what you are going to get, and it is almost always satisfying. While many casual dining chains feel like they are phoning it in, Texas Roadhouse still feels like it takes pride in the food. That is rare in today's dining landscape. The atmosphere, of course, is not for everyone. It is loud, crowded, and sometimes chaotic. But for many, that energy is part of the fun. Families love it because kids are welcome. Groups love it because it feels lively, and even solo diners enjoy the warm, casual vibe. Price-wise, it is fair. You can have a full steak dinner with sides for a fraction of what you would pay at a higher-end steakhouse, and the quality is close enough that you do not feel like you compromised. That balance of value and flavor is why Texas Roadhouse stands out as one of the few casual dining chains still worth visiting. So here's my question. Do you go to Texas Roadhouse mainly for the steaks? Or are the warm rolls with cinnamon butter the real reason you keep coming back? And finally, closing things out on a nostalgic note, we have the roadside stop, where hearty breakfasts meet country store charm, Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is more than a restaurant. It is an experience. From the rocking chairs on the porch to the country store filled with toys, candy, and knickknacks, it feels like stepping back in time. But what really makes it stand out is the food. Breakfast is their crown jewel. Fluffy biscuits with gravy, crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, and hot coffee make you feel like you are at grandma's table. Pancakes arrive golden brown, served with real syrup and butter, and they never disappoint. Even their chicken and dumplings at lunch or fried chicken at dinner carry the same comfort food charm. It is not fancy, but it is consistent, hearty, and satisfying. The atmosphere seals the deal. Cozy fireplaces in the winter, country music in the background, and servers who treat you like family all make the experience memorable. Unlike so many chains that feel soulless, Cracker Barrel has personality. It is not just about eating, it is about feeling at home. Price is another win. You can feed a family without emptying your wallet, and the portions are generous. While many chains cut corners on quality to save cost, Cracker Barrel manages to keep its meals both affordable and flavorful. It is one of the few casual dining chains that still feels like a true value. That does not mean it is perfect. Some dishes can feel a little heavy, and not everyone loves the old-fashioned decor. But overall, Cracker Barrel succeeds at delivering exactly what it promises: comfort food with a side of nostalgia. So tell me, when you stop at Cracker Barrel, do you go more for the country store shopping or the hearty breakfast that feels like home? And that is our full tour through the hits and misses of casual dining. So tell us in the comments which chain still earns your loyalty. Tap like if you have ever left with a to-go box bigger than your appetite, and subscribe to the hidden menu for more tasty breakdowns.
And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.